Hey everyone, I'm Chloe, this is Donn, and these are my members. We will all be explaining the summary of Chapter 1, The World of Media and Information Literacy. Let's begin! Long before, people have found ways to communicate with each other, either through drawings, gestures, or facial expressions, until such time they've learned to create a message. And speaking of message, hey Donn, can you remind me as to what a message is?
Absolutely, and no problem, Chloe. A message refers to any form of communication passed or transmitted using a channel. The process of transmitting this message either through letter, technology, or verbally is called communication. There are different kinds of communication which will be elaborated further in the following lessons.
And with that, let's begin with Lesson 1! Lesson 1: Communication from interpersonal to mass communication.
As I've said, there are different types of communication. Either it is interpersonal, mediated interpersonal, organizational, or public, which will be further explained by me and Chloe.
Now let's start with the first one, interpersonal communication. This is defined as the exchange of message between one or more people. There will be an example given later on. Now that is an example of interpersonal communication. You guys can stop now. Guys?
Mediated interpersonal communication, on the other hand, is when technology stands in between of both parties communicating. Here is an example of it. Now, this is an example of mediated interpersonal communication.
I can't believe that actually happened. Remember when the nerds with the belt drive and shooting everyone? I didn't expect that.
Now the next one is organizational communication. This is the type of communication wherein people are communicating in a working environment. There will be an example given later on and now.
Sir, what for you?
Now this is an example of organizational communication.
Last but not the least is the public communication, which is a type of communication which involves one person communicating with a large amount of people. For example,
Okay, of course, first of all, let me congratulate all of you chats during this course. Right? I know that there were issues. You were visiting me in different places, telling me about this, telling me about that.
And that's it for Lesson 1. See you later!
Lesson 2: From Writings on the Wall to Signals Traveling in the Airways by Sara Aziz
and Aneesa Mustafa.
Where did it all start, you may ask? From writing on the cave walls, it then turned to condex. Then, after the 15th century, Johannes Gutenberg introduced the printing press, and thus, newspapers was released were used as a medium for mass communication. Thoreau noted the rise of an adversarial press that had the ability to conduct dialogue and even argue with the government. And the development of steam engines gave way to steam-powered cylinders press, which truly made newspapers a medium of mass media.
Nowadays, as technology had risen in our society, formats of newspapers are now present online through sites and apps. The newspaper catered the people's desire for information, whilst film was considered as mass media. George Eastman, Kodak, Thomas Edison, and William Dixon photographic film in stripes, Louis and Augustus Lumiere film projectors are the people who contributed for the rise of film. After that, radio and television followed very closely. The first telecast of a television program took place in 1928, which was transmitted by General Electric Experimental Studio. President Franklin D. Roosevelt was the first president to appear on the tube. Nazi authorities in Germany first operated the world's regular television service, and after that came the rise of media.
Traditional media, known as books, newspapers, magazines, sound recording, radio, television, and film, were already considered as antecedent to new technology around the 1950s.
Transistor radio came in 1948, then came the 701 computers in 1953, which was released by IBM. After came the ARPANET in 1968, then it was the ARPANET to Internet in 1971, and lastly, the TCP/IP architecture, which is in 1980.
That is all for this lesson, and stay tuned for more.
Lesson 3: Communication vis-a-vis mass communication by Juno, Nerida, and Mehdi, Reza. This is the EDSA 2 phenomenon, a perfect example of mass communication. What once started as a small text turned into a great chaos of rampaging citizens in the EDSA shrine to overthrow President Estrada for his corruption and hidden wealth. The texting phenomenon that toppled the president happened because people were connected through their cell phones, and the rate of connection increased exponentially, which resulted into a warm bodies of EDSA.
From this example alone, you can identify the similarities of interpersonal and mass communication, which is the ability of both to reach a huge number of recipients or audience. The differences, on the other hand, is the source of the message, which can either be by an individual or organization. The process of transmittal, which is either through verbal, non-verbal, or technology, and the way the feedback is generated and sent. There are 7 cycles of a message. The message itself, then the source, the encoding process, the channel, receiver of the message, the feedback, and the noise interference. These are the series of processes which a message has to go through.
Interpersonal communication, in as much as it is mediated by technology, appears to be a limited in its reach mass communication. However, is able to reach huge audiences at the same time. Mediated interpersonal communication too appears like messages created by huge, mostly powerful, extensive organization.
That's all for now. See ya!
Lesson 4: Approaches to the relationship between media and society. Out of here! I'm telling you all, shippo, open your eyes, close your ears.
And that, folks, is why you should study MIL.
That's all for now. Stay tuned.
Lesson 5: Media and Information Literacy as Citizen Engagement by Ahmed, Kamal, and Raed Alzuwaid.
Don't worry, you just read about the advertisement about whitening products in order for us to understand the meaning of let's base it on the 5 key questions. Who created the message? What were used to attract my attention? How did we react to this print advertisement? What lifestyle were presented? And what are the values being promoted?
I'm okay now. Let's define what media information literacy is. In order for us to really understand it, let's first define what literacy is. Literacy is widely known as the ability of one individual to read and write. Media literacy, on the other hand, refers to the ability of one individual to access, analyze, and respond to a range of media.
What is the working definition of media literacy? This can be defined by 3 terminologies: accessing the media, analyzing the media, and expressing themselves using media. Print were considered as the magazine, journals, and newspaper, which they were called a publication. After a new edition is now called media.
Now, why is empowerment such a big word? Empowerment is hinged on the idea that power can change. From the word power, you can define control, dominance, and influence. Power is not always relational. In fact, that is what media literacy is all about, to cultivate the power inside you. Now let's define information literacy. From the word information, which enable us to know, and literacy, which enable us to read and write. Information literacy is the set of abilities requiring individuals to recognize when information is needed and how to locate, evaluate, and use it effectively. The rise of technology gave birth to internet when it arose in 1969, but it was in 1989 when a fully developed World Wide Web arose and turned into a global platform for knowledge sharing, communication, and achieving, which is now used in the modern era.
There are other sources of information other than in the internet, such as popular, scholarly,
as defined by UNESCO. Computer literacy, on the other hand, means the set of skills, attitudes, and knowledge necessary to understand and operate the basic function of information and communication.
That's all for now, folks. See you later.
And lastly, Lesson 6, Media and Information Literacy Education.
Yo, guys! Hey! Everyone! Is that copy a lecture? Yeah! Take a look at this! What's that?
Wait. Oh, wow. It doesn't work.
Bro, our country is doomed. Give me a 1 over
What? Yeah, there's no
well, let's see in the Philippines.
Once again, the Philippines are following the trend of those politicians. The various footage is so cringeworthy and lack of professionalism.
Yeah,
that's just really not media literacy, huh?
That's so unprofessional.
Truly, media literacy plays a huge role in our society.
Yeah.
A vast majority of our citizens haven't been educated in this yet.
Yeah, so we really need media information. Hey, it's gonna be nice. Let's go.
That's all for this presentation. Bye!